The hallway was quiet, too quiet. It was late long after the other workers had gone home. Only the hum of cleaning bots and the soft swish of mops could be heard. Ben, a human janitor, pushed his old cleaning cart through the shining corridor of Zerel Station. His steps were slow, tired but steady. He worked the night shift, always quiet, always unnoticed. No one talked to him, and he liked it that way. But tonight, something was different. He heard something soft, something that didn't belong. A sound like someone crying. He stopped, holding his breath. Then he heard it again. Sniffles coming from the corner near the learning wing. Ben left his mop and followed the sound. There, curled up beside the wall, was a little girl, alien, with pale purple skin, glowing silver eyes, and tiny braces on her legs. She looked no older than 7. Her hands covered her face as her small shoulders shook. She was trying to hide her tears. Ben didn't say anything right away. He slowly sat down a few steps away, not too close. "I cry too sometimes," he said quietly. The girl looked up, her eyes wide with fear. She didn't speak, just stared at him. He smiled gently, reaching into his coat pocket. "I was going to eat this later, but maybe you want it more." He pulled out a wrapped sandwich, plain bread and a slice of synth meat. Not much, but warm. He carefully placed it on the floor and slid it toward her. The girl didn't move at first. Then, slowly, she picked it up. She looked at him confused, as if no one had ever offered her food before. Her hands trembled as she took a bite. Tears still ran down her cheeks, but her chewing made her stop crying. Ben watched her quietly. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She didn't answer, but her lips moved. "Rila," she whispered, barely audible. "That's a nice name," Ben said, smiling. "I'm Ben. I clean floors and fix broken lights. Nothing fancy." She gave him a tiny nod. He noticed the metal braces on her legs. They looked expensive, high-tech, but worn out. "Do your legs hurt?" he asked gently. Rila didn't answer, but she looked away, ashamed. Ben didn't push. Instead, he reached into his cart and pulled out a small cleaning robot, a round one with blinking lights. "This one's name is Scrub," he said, setting it down. "Want to see something fun?" He tapped a button and the bot spun in a little circle, then played a silly tune. Rila blinked, then giggled. Just once. It was the smallest sound, but it felt like the brightest light in the hallway. Ben grinned. "There it is," he said, "the best sound in the galaxy, unseen to both of them high above." Behind the mirrored glass of a private office, someone was watching. A tall alien woman stood still, her face unreadable. She wore long silver robes, and her hair was tied in an elegant crown braid. Her name was Leora Zerel, heiress of the Zerel dynasty, one of the wealthiest leaders in the sector, and the crying child was her daughter. Leora had seen her daughter struggle for years. No doctor could fix her legs. No tutor could make her smile. Rila was quiet, always alone. Her staff treated the girl like fragile glass, polished but cold. But now, through a dusty camera feed, Leora saw her daughter smiling. At a human janitor, she didn't know how to feel. Shock, confusion, maybe something more. All the money in her empire, and she had failed to bring her child joy. But this man, this human, this nobody, had done it in minutes, with a sandwich and a broken cleaning robot. Leora didn't call the guards. She didn't send anyone to stop it. She simply stood there, hand over her mouth, watching as Rila reached out to touch the spinning robot. Watching as Ben laughed softly, pretending the bot was dancing just for her. Watching as her daughter looked alive, truly alive, for the first time in years. And in that moment, Leora Zerel felt something crack inside her heart. Something old. Something frozen. It didn't break, but it started to melt. The next morning, Ben returned to his usual shift. Same halls, same cart, same tools, but something felt different inside him. He kept thinking about that little girl, Rila, her silver eyes, her soft laugh, the way she had said his name without fear. He didn't expect to see her again. Most rich families didn't let their children near janitors twice. But as he turned the corner by the learning wing, he froze. There she was, sitting on the same bench as last night. This time, she had 2 sandwiches in her lap. She looked up at him and smiled, shy but proud. "I brought you one," she said. Holding it out, Ben blinked, surprised, then slowly took the sandwich. "Thanks, Princess," he said jokingly. Rila giggled again, and the sound lit up the hallway, unseen to both of them. The station's security camera zoomed in silently. Upstairs, Leora Zarel watched the screen from her private chamber. She had been awake most of the night, watching the footage from earlier, watching Ben kneel beside her daughter like he was meeting royalty, watching Rila laugh, something she hadn't done in months. Now, as she saw her daughter again, waiting for the janitor, not a tutor, not a doctor, but him, 1,000 questions filled her mind. Rila had everything. The best medical teams in the galaxy had treated her. The finest cyber braces had been made just for her small legs. Yet still she walked with struggle and lived in silence. Leora had hired bodyguards, teachers, robot companions, even singers to cheer her up. Nothing had worked. But this human man, this low-level worker who smelled of oil and soap, he had cracked through Rila's walls in a single night. How? She tapped her desk, calling up his profile. Ben called her age. 38 species. Human origin. Earth, destroyed. Former occupation, military engineer current. Job, station maintenance, night janitor. Status, single, no children, no criminal record. Lives, in Sector G7, workers' quarters. She leaned back in her chair, eyebrows tight with thought. A human soldier turned janitor, living in the lowest level of the station. Nothing about him stood out on paper. Yet Rila had chosen him, trusted him, smiled at him. Leora turned away from the screen and walked to a side room filled with mirrors and silk. Inside was a small throne-like chair where Rila had once sat. Beside it were shelves of expensive toys, untouched. The air was heavy with silence and dust. She stared at the room, her fingers trailing along the golden frame of a child-sized hover chair. Memories flooded back. Rila falling down during her first walking lesson, the doctor saying her bones would never grow strong, the stares from other noble families when she carried her daughter into public meetings, the whispers, the broken princess, the flawed heiress, unfit to lead. Leora had spent her whole life building power. She had crushed enemies, made deals with governments, earned titles no other woman had dared to claim. But in all her victories, she had lost the one thing that mattered, her daughter's joy. And now that joy had returned because of a human who mopped floors. It shook her. She walked to a screen and activated a private call. "Security," she said. "I want quiet surveillance." On the janitor, Ben called her. "No interference, no alerts, I want to know everything. Where he goes, who he talks to, and how he treats my child." "Yes, Lady Zarel," the voice replied. Back in the hallway, Ben and Rila sat on the cold floor near a utility closet sharing their sandwiches. He showed her how to program a simple cleaning drone. She listened carefully, eyes wide with curiosity. He let her press buttons even when she messed up. "Oops," she said when the bot spun in circles. Ben laughed. "That just means it's dancing." Rila giggled again, louder this time. Then she asked, "Why do you work here?" Ben paused, thinking. "Because someone has to," he said. "And because I'm good at fixing things." Rila looked at him, then down at her own legs. "Can you fix me?" she whispered. Ben looked at her with soft eyes. "You're not broken," he said slowly. "You're just strong in a different way." Rila didn't respond, but she leaned closer to him, resting her small shoulder against his arm. For the first time in her life, someone had said those words to her. Not a lie, not pity, just truth. And high above in her private tower, Leora Zarel's eyes filled with something rare. Not anger, not pride. A deep ache in her chest. She whispered to herself. What kind of Empress builds worlds yet can't build a smile on her daughter's face? In that moment, the woman known as the Iron Heiress felt something dangerous. Doubt. And for the first time in many years, she let herself feel it. The lunchroom on Zarel Station was built for officers and high-class diplomats. Tall windows showed distant stars. Silver tables reflected soft blue lights. But Ben and Rila didn't sit there. Their spot was different, a small corner near the back, hidden behind a supply rack and a flickering vending unit. It wasn't clean, it wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. Ben sat cross-legged on the floor, peeling the wrapping off his sandwich. Rila sat beside him with her legs stretched out, her braces clicking softly when she moved. She had brought 2 small juice packs today. One for her, one for Ben. "This one's cherry lemon," she said proudly, handing it over. "It's the best," Ben smiled and took it. "To the best juice in space," he said, tapping the little box against hers like a toast. Rila laughed, a soft and happy sound. She had changed in just a few days. Her voice was clearer, her movements more confident. She even leaned against the wall less, trying to sit straight like Ben. They talked about silly things, robots with silly names, which stars looked like animals, how vending machines sometimes spit out angry snacks. Ben made up funny stories about cleaning bots going rogue and forming a mop army. Rila laughed so hard once she spilled juice on her dress. Ben wiped it away with a cloth from his pocket, still smiling. He didn't care if the dress was expensive, he cared that she was happy, unseen to them. Behind a hidden lens in the hallway, a camera watched, and behind that camera, Leora Zarel watched too. She sat alone in her private chamber, once again skipping meetings and calls. Advisors knocked, waiting outside. But she didn't answer, and the screen, she saw her daughter glowing, not from the light, but from joy. Rila's eyes sparkled. Her hands moved freely, her voice was alive. Leora leaned forward, whispering to no one. "She's not just smiling, she's thriving." She rewound the footage, watching again how Ben gave Rila time to speak, never interrupting her. How he helped her try to stretch her legs without treating her like she might break. How he called her little engineer when she fixed the settings on the cleaning drone. Ben had no medical degree, no noble blood, but he understood her. Later that day, Leora called her personal AI. "Order a full report on Ben Calder's life before the station," she said. "No surface details, I want everything." "Yes, Lady Zarel," the AI responded smoothly. Meanwhile, in their secret lunch corner, Rila turned serious. "Why do the others not talk to me?" she asked quietly. Ben stopped chewing. "You mean the kids?" he said. Rila nodded, looking at the floor. "They call me slow. They whisper about my legs and some laugh when I fall." Ben sighed, setting his sandwich aside. "Kids can be mean," he said, "especially when they don't understand something." "You know what I do when someone mocks me?" he asked. Rila looked up, curious. "I pretend I'm a tree," Ben said, strong, quiet, and still. "They can yell, they can throw words, but the tree stays rooted." Rila blinked, then gave him a puzzled look. "A tree?" Ben smiled. "Yep, and sometimes I imagine my roots go so deep they reach Earth." Rila tilted her head. "Earth? You're from Earth?" Ben nodded slowly. "Was. Before it. You know." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew Earth was gone now, turned to dust during the war. Rila was quiet for a moment, then gently took his hand. Her fingers were small, soft. "I like your roots," she said softly. Ben smiled, but his chest tightened. No child had ever said something so kind to him, not in a long time. That evening, Leora read Ben's full report. It told of a man who once designed machines to rescue trapped civilians in war zones. He had saved lives, built tech from scraps, refused promotions to stay with frontline teams. After the war, he vanished from Earth's ruins, finding small jobs across the stars. Never married, no known family, only one consistent thing. He always worked near children, even if from far away. Leora closed the file, her hands trembling. Slightly, she had misjudged him. This wasn't a simple janitor. This was a man who had already saved lives. And now, he was saving her daughter. Quietly, gently, without expecting anything in return. The next day, Rila and Ben arrived at their usual spot to find something strange. The corner was cleaner, the flickering vending unit was fixed, and there were 2 soft cushions placed on the floor. Rila looked confused. Ben raised an eyebrow. Then Rila found a small note on one cushion, written in elegant gold letters. Every princess deserves a throne, a friend. Ben stared at the note, then glanced at the hallway cameras. He said nothing, but he knew. Somebody was watching, and maybe, just maybe, they cared now. The Hydro. Garden was the quietest place on the station, hidden 2 levels below the main decks, filled with glowing plants and filtered sunlight tubes. Few people ever came down here, only engineers and gardeners, which made it the perfect hiding place for a little girl with braces and a human janitor with stories. Ben helped Rila step carefully over a low pipe, holding her hand steady. Her cyber braces clicked with each step, but she didn't complain. Not anymore, she focused, sweat on her brow, lips pressed in determination. She walked 5 steps on her own, then fell softly into his arms, laughing. "You made it halfway to the tree," Ben said, pointing to a small fruit tree glowing with blue leaves. "Tomorrow we make it all the way." Rila nodded, breathing hard, but proud. The garden smelled, like soil and warm mist, something earth-like. Ben wiped her forehead with a small towel. "You're getting stronger, Rila," he said. "Not just your legs, your heart too." Unseen behind the vines, a boy watched them. He was tall, blue-skinned, with the crest of a noble family on his tunic. He was from Rila's school, one of the children who whispered behind her back, and he did not like what he saw. Later that day, as Rila practiced walking again near the garden gate, the boy approached. He waited until Ben went to fetch water, then stepped forward. "You don't belong here," he hissed at her. Rila turned, surprised and confused. "This is for important people," the boy continued, voice sharp. "Not broken ones like you, and not dirty humans either." Rila tried to step back, but her legs slipped. She lost balance and fell, her hands scraping the stone floor. The boy smirked, then turned to walk away. Ben returned just in time to see Rila. On the ground, tears forming in her eyes, he rushed over, kneeling beside her. "What happened?" he asked, checking her arms for bruises. She shook her head, trying not to cry. "Just fell," she whispered. Ben looked up and saw the boy walking away. He didn't yell, didn't chase. Instead, he turned back to Rila, lifted her gently, and sat her down on a bench. "You didn't fall," he said. "You were pushed." Rila stayed quiet, lips trembling. Ben looked into her eyes. "Listen to me," he said, voice calm but strong. "You're not broken, Rila. You're brave, you're smart. And one day, you're going to stand taller than anyone who ever looked down on you." Rila blinked, hard, then nodded slowly. She reached out and squeezed his hand. At that moment, a sound echoed behind them. Footsteps, heavy ones. Ben turned just in time to see 2 royal guards walking toward them, armor shining like silver flame. One of them pointed. "You, human," he barked. "Step away from the child." Ben stood protectively in front of Rila. "I'm just helping her," he said. "You have no permission to be here." The second guard snapped. "This area is off limits to janitorial staff." Before Ben could answer, Rila stood up, wobbling but firm. "He didn't hurt me," she said, her voice shaky but loud. "He's my friend. I asked him to come here." The guards froze, surprised by her words, but rules were rules, and they moved closer. "We're taking you to speak with Lady Zero," one of them said to Ben. "Now." Ben didn't resist, but his jaw tightened. He turned to Rila. "It's okay, stay here, don't worry," he said softly. She shook her head, eyes wide with panic. No, please. He didn't do anything wrong," she cried. "Please don't take him." But the guards didn't listen. They escorted Ben through the halls, their grips firm on his arms. Other workers stared, whispering. Did the janitor steal something? Why would guards take him? They reached the top deck, where golden doors opened into the private chambers of Lady Leora Zarel. Ben had never been here before. It smelled of rare flowers and expensive oils. He stood awkwardly in the middle of the polished floor as the guards left him alone. A moment later, the doors opened again, and Leora walked in. She was tall, regal, glowing in silver and blue robes. Her face was calm but unreadable. Ben stood straight, unsure if he should salute, bow, or just run. "You are Ben Calder," she said, her voice smooth like ice. "Yes, ma'am," he replied quietly. "You've been spending time with my daughter." "Yes, ma'am." "Without permission?" He hesitated. "She asked me to, and I didn't want her to feel alone." Leora studied him, walking in a slow circle around him like a hawk. "You didn't take pictures? Didn't brag to others? Didn't ask for money?" Ben frowned. "No, I just cared." She stopped in front of him, her eyes meeting his, and for the first time something in her face softened. "She called you her friend," Leora said, more to herself than to him. Then, after a long silence, she whispered, "Stay where you are. Don't go." "Back to the lower decks yet?" Ben nodded, unsure what that meant. Leora turned away, waving a hand. "Guards, take him to the waiting chamber, give him food." Then she walked alone to her balcony. Below, far in the courtyard, she could see Rila still sitting in the garden, looking small and lost. The heiress stared for a long time, and deep inside her a choice began to form, a dangerous, life-changing choice. One she never thought she'd even consider. For as long as anyone could remember, Lady Leora Zirel never left the upper towers. She ruled from above, where the air was cleaner, the lights softer, and the voices always polite. Her feet rarely touched the same floor as the workers. Guards walked ahead of her, and servants never looked her in the eye. She was a symbol, a shadow of power, untouchable. But that morning something changed. Her daughter had cried in the garden. Her daughter had begged the guards not to take the janitor. And for the first time, Leora felt shame deeper than words. She had everything: empires, ships, gold, control, but she did not have her daughter's smile. Ben Calder did. Leora stepped away from her mirror, took off the heavy ceremonial cloak. She wore simple silver robes now, her hair tied back. No crown, no jewels. "Ready the elevator," she said. To her assistant, "I'm going down." The assistant blinked in shock, stammered, "To the lower decks, my lady?" Leora's eyes narrowed. "Yes, to the dirt and the dust." "And call off the guards, I don't want anyone to follow me." Within minutes, whispers flew like lightning across Zirel Station. "The heiress is leaving her tower. She's going to the maintenance floors. Is someone dying?" No one knew why. But the halls fell silent as Leora walked through them alone, her robe sweeping over the metal floor. When she reached the waiting chamber, the guard stepped back and opened the door, heads bowed. Inside, Ben Calder sat quietly, hands folded, a half-eaten sandwich in front of him. He looked up, surprised. He stood quickly, unsure of what to say. "Sit," Leora said, her voice firm but without edge. Ben slowly sat back down, eyes fixed on hers. Leora didn't speak right away. She just looked at him, studying him. Not like a ruler looking at a servant, but like a mother trying to understand a stranger who somehow held a piece of her heart. "You're the first person," she said slowly, "who made my daughter laugh without being paid to try." Ben nodded, unsure if that was good or bad. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "She just needed someone to see her." Leora walked to the other side of the table and sat across from him. "No doctors helped her walk," she whispered. "No teachers got her to speak freely. But you, a janitor with old boots and tired eyes, you gave her hope." Ben swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to break any rules," he said. "I just saw a kid who looked lonely." Leora's gaze softened just a little. "My daughter is more than lonely. Mr. Calder, she's been trapped, in silence, in shame, in expectations too heavy for her small shoulders." There was a long pause between them. Then she added, "She used to smile when she was a baby, before the doctors told me she might never dance. After that, the world looked at her like she was broken, so I built walls around her thinking I was protecting her, but maybe I was the one holding her back. Ben stayed quiet, letting her speak. Leora looked down at her hands that had signed treaties, ended wars, built colonies, but couldn't reach her own child. Then she looked up again, eyes sharp. I want to make you an offer, Ben. He raised an eyebrow. I want you to stay with Rila, not just during lunch, but every day. Ben's eyes widened. You mean like, as her caretaker? No, Leora said firmly. As her friend, as someone who sees her, teaches her, helps her grow strong, not just in body, but in heart. Ben leaned back, unsure. Why me? There are doctors, therapists, experts. They don't care like you do, she interrupted. They see her as a case. You see her as a person. He thought for a long moment. He had no fancy title, no training for this. But he thought of Rila's smile, her shaky steps, her tiny hand in his, and he knew he couldn't walk away now. I'll stay, he said quietly. For her. Leora nodded slowly, and then something unexpected happened. She stood, walked around the table, and reached out her hand. Ben hesitated, then shook it. The galaxy might laugh at me for this, Leora said, but I'd rather be mocked as a mother who loved too much than respected as one who never tried. The next day, a message spread across the station. Lady Leora Zarel had appointed a human, Janitor, as her daughter's companion. Some nobles gasped, others mocked, but none could deny the truth. Rila Zarel was walking, smiling, blooming like a flower finally in the sun, and the woman who had once ruled from high towers was now standing beside her child, on the same floor at the same level, no longer just a ruler, now a mother. The news moved fast, faster than light, across the space station, into noble homes, and through political circles. Whispers turned into questions, and questions turned into fury. The heiress of Zarel had made a human janitor part of her household. To some it was shocking, to others, unforgivable. Inside the Zarel tower, Rila was learning to climb stairs. Ben stood behind her, hands ready to catch her if she slipped. Left foot, right foot, breathe, he said gently. Rila gritted her teeth, her small hands gripping the railing. She was sweating, but smiling. 4 steps up and still standing, Leora watched from a distance, her heart full. Her daughter was growing stronger, step by step. She didn't care what the others said, but she knew it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Later that day, her personal assistant rushed in with a worried face. My lady, there's a call from House Vareth. They request a meeting at once. Leora sighed and nodded. She had been expecting this. One by one, the powerful would try to change her mind. The meeting room was cold and sharp, filled with voices too polished to be honest. Representatives from 3 noble houses sat around the long table, all of them dressed in layers of wealth, robes that shimmered, jewels that pulsed with energy. One man stood first, tall and thin, his voice smooth. Lady Zarel, this decision, bringing a human janitor into your daughter's circle, it sends a message. Leora raised an eyebrow. And what message is that? She asked calmly. The man hesitated, then continued. That House Zarel is weakening, that your emotions are leading your leadership, that you're opening doors to those below your rank. Leora leaned forward slightly, her voice cold and clear. My daughter walks now, smiles now, speaks freely now. For years your doctors and experts failed her. This man gave her hope, and I will not remove hope from my child to satisfy your pride. Another woman stood, shaking her head. You risk our alliances, Lady Zarel. The other houses see this as betrayal. You're breaking tradition. There will be consequences. Leora stood now, tall and unmoved. Let them come, she said. Let the consequences fall. I will not trade my daughter's happiness for silence and fear. The nobles left, angry and cold, but the threats didn't end there. Within hours, anonymous messages flooded. The tower's security system. Remove the human, one said. Your rule will collapse, another warned. Someone even offered money, a large sum, for Ben to be dismissed quietly. Ben found out when Leora handed him a tablet with the messages. He read them slowly, his face unreadable. "You still want me here after all this?" he asked. Leora looked him in the eye. "You've done more for Rila in days than others have done in years." "Yes, I still want you here." But Ben wasn't used to being wanted. He paced his small quarters that night, thinking hard. He'd seen what power could do. During the war, during famine, during peace that wasn't peace, he didn't want to bring danger to Rila or Leora. But leaving, that didn't feel right either. The next morning, Ben found Rila in the garden again. She was sitting under the fruit tree with a sketch pad in her lap. He sat beside her, quiet. After a moment, she looked up and asked, "Are you leaving?" Ben was caught off guard. "What makes you think that?" he asked. "Because the guards talk loud when they think I'm not listening," she said. "And they said people want you gone." Ben didn't lie. "Some do," he said. "But I haven't. Decided anything yet?" Rila stared at him, then turned her sketchpad around. She had drawn a picture of herself, standing beside a tall man holding a mop and a smile. Above it, she had written in shaky letters, "My friend Ben." Ben's chest tightened. She didn't need bodyguards. She didn't need fake smiles or flying tutors. She needed someone who believed in her, and right now that someone was him. He looked at her, then at the sketch. "Guess I better stay then," he said. "Looks like I've got art to live up to." Rila grinned and hugged him tightly, her arms small but warm. And in that moment, Ben knew the answer was clear. No threats, no gold, no political pressure could make him leave her side. Meanwhile, Leora stood on her balcony reading another message from a High Council member. It warned her again. Remove the human, or face a vote of no confidence. She held the tablet in her hand, then tossed it into the fire below. The flames swallowed it whole. Then she turned her eyes to the sky, whispering, "They can threaten my crown, but not my child." The great hall of the Interplanetary Council had never been this crowded. News had spread like wildfire. Lady Leora Zerel was making an announcement. Some believed she would apologize and step down from her position. Others thought she would banish the human and restore tradition, but no one knew for sure. What they did know was, this would change everything. Ben stood near the edge of the stage, dressed in a simple dark uniform. His boots were polished, but his hands still had faint traces of oil and soap. He wasn't used to crowds, he wasn't used to spotlights, but he stood tall. For her, just behind him, holding onto a silver railing, was Rila. She wore a soft blue gown that matched her glowing eyes. Her braces sparkled in the light, but no one was looking at her legs today. They were all watching how she stood, how she held herself, how she smiled, and beside her, as always now, stood her mother, Leora Zerel, but not the cold empress the people remembered. Today she wore no crown, no armored robe. She stood in simple white silk with nothing but a pendant of her family crest on her chest. She looked like a mother, not a ruler. The crowd fell silent as she stepped forward. Her voice, when it came, was calm but clear. "Good citizens of the council, noble families and honored guests, I come before you not to defend myself but to speak truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but no one dared interrupt. "For too long," Leora said, "we have measured worth by bloodlines and rank, by strength, by perfection, by titles that mean little when your heart is empty." She paused, her eyes scanning the nobles in front of her. "You call my daughter broken. You whisper behind closed doors that I should hide her. Keep her locked away." Gasps filled the room, but she didn't flinch. "But I say to you, she is not broken. She is brave, kind, clever, and stronger than any of you know." Rila stepped forward then, slowly, step by step. The crowd watched in silence as she made her way to the center of the stage. No help, no hands, just her and her will. And when she reached her mother's side, the hall was silent enough to hear the hum of the lights above. Leora smiled and placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "And this man," she said, motioning to Ben. "This human janitor, he is the one who saw her when the rest of us were blind. He is not a threat. He is not a scandal. He is family. A wave of shock moved through the crowd like a storm. Ben lowered his eyes, overwhelmed. He hadn't expected that word, family, not from someone like her. But when he looked at Rila and saw her tiny smile, he knew it was real. Then came the moment that would be remembered forever. Leora raised her voice once more. I hereby announce a new law, the Humanity Accord. From this day forward, no child of any race, ability, or class shall be denied care, dignity, or companionship. She looked directly at the council seats where older nobles whispered behind polished masks, and no worker shall be judged by their title, but by their actions. Some of them stood. In protest, some turned their backs, but many remained, silent and thoughtful. The world was changing, whether they liked it or not. Outside the hall, crowds of civilians watched the speech through public broadcasts. On factory planets, in mining camps, in refugee colonies, hope bloomed. Because if a human janitor could stand beside the daughter of Zarel, then maybe the old walls were starting to fall. After the speech, Leora, Ben, and Rila stepped outside. Into the soft evening light, Rila held both their hands now, one in each. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of being seen. She walked proudly, her head held high, her braces clicking with confidence. And when people looked at her, they didn't see a broken child anymore. They saw a miracle in motion. Later that night, in the garden under the glowing fruit tree, Ben sat with Rila again. She leaned on his side, drawing another picture in her sketchpad. This time, it was all three of them, standing in front of stars smiling. She wrote above it, "This is my family." Ben chuckled. "You gave me hair in this drawing," he said. Rila giggled. "You had hair once, right?" "Not that much," he teased. "But I'll take it." Leora sat nearby, reading a datapad, her face calm for once. She looked at the two of them and smiled softly, not the cold smile of a queen, but the warm, quiet smile of a mother who had finally chosen the right path. That night, the galaxy slept differently. Not because of war, not because of peace treaties, but because one little girl had walked across a stage and one human had dared to care, and in a world of empires and crowns, sometimes that was enough to change everything.